coming at you in a row of flying.
Will you shut up, man? China ate your lunch.
Vengeance is ours, saith the mob. And they're still saying it.
Already, they've issued 9 warrants in a protest that pitted conservatives against liberals.
These 59 people are believed to have been sickened by the new virus.
The media is so dishonest and so corrupt.
"2020 was an eventful year. A really eventful year. More and more, we started to rely heavily on our media, whether it is a YouTube video, news to watch, or the social media apps on your phone. But most of us don't realize the influence of images and videos you consume on a daily basis are subtly changing your perspective and views of others. These subtle differences are the basis of political division, especially to the extent we have seen in 2020, causing more and more Americans to be distant. This last year has shown the effects of media through riots, protests, and violence, which could be prevented. As upcoming voters, we have the responsibility to change this division and create unity. And it all starts with media bias.
The past few weeks, we did notice a sudden dramatic change of heart among so-called journalists and the press.
We are often told to celebrate the freedom of our media and how countries like North Korea use propaganda to brainwash its citizens. But in reality, we may be closer to North Korea and other countries than you may think. And the free media might not be that free. In a famous book called Manufacturing Consent, Noam Chomsky, he criticizes the notion that the media was to serve the people, keep politicians in check, and can help us better engage in the political process. In a video called The 5 Filters in the Media Press by Amy Goodman, Noam Chomsky's big idea was that the media manufactures your consent. There are 5 filters in the mass media in Noam Chomsky's book. The first of them is media ownership. In reality, the media you watch are from large corporations that are there to make profit. With the need for profit, these large media firms will put out stories and news specifically to gain your viewership and profit, whether or not it is in your interest. You may also notice the bombardment of advertisements that come when you watch the news, and that isn't a mistake. The second type of filter is advertising money. Since the media doesn't gain a lot of money from its viewers, it needs to create deals with large advertisements. In more broader terms, the media is selling large companies your money and viewership in order to create profit. The third type of filter is the media elite. Journalism can only be known through these large corporations and companies, which encourages complicity of their ideas. Governments and institutions often influence the media through interviews and their expertise. If writers and journalists do not conform to these ideas, their stories are unknown and their journalism career often fails, which means that these experts are often forced under the influence of the mass media. The fourth type of filter is the flag. When a person contradicts the ideas of large companies and institutions, they're often criticized and deemed uncredible. The fifth type of filter is a common enemy. People like terrorists or communists. There are things that bring fear to people, effectively increasing viewership and gathering public opinion. These 5 types of filters show that the media doesn't pursue for the truth or justice, but rather for us, the viewer, which explains why there's media bias in the first place. Media bias is used to gain our viewership and conformity, which guarantees their profit.
The press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym.
Biden wants to take me to the back of the barn. Me. He wants it. I'd love that.
Media bias has a serious effect on American citizens and is the reason for many of the violent events seen in 2020. According to an article called Political Polarization in the American Public by Pew Research Center, Republicans and Democrats are more divided along ideological lines, and partisan antipathy is deeper and more extensive than at any point in the last 2 decades. These divisions are greatest among those who are most engaged and active in the political process. In the first chart, we can see an increasing gap in views between the Republican and Democratic parties from 1994 to 2014. If we take a closer look, we can see that 92% of Republicans are more conservative than the median Democrat, an increase of 28% in 20 years, while 94% of Democrats are more liberal than the median Republican, an increase of 24% in 20 years. This increase of division is not a coincidence. It's the act of the media increasing political division. It's by using subtle media bias, the opinions and beliefs of people can change, causing them to be more extreme than they usually would. also known as group polarization. In social psychology, group polarization refers to the tendency for a group to make decisions that are more extreme than the initial inclination of its members. In politics, this can cause neutral people in the political spectrum to be more liberal or conservative than they actually are, and which is the main reason for political division and a weakening democracy today. So the real question is, how do we combat media bias? Sam Buchanan states that until tech companies come with a way to get rid of malicious content with a fair, unbiased, even-handed approach, it should be left to us to use our brains to fact-check and become discerning in what we view and share. It is important to realize that the media won't change their biases without us interfering. An essential part of obtaining bias-free information is learning how to fact-check. Fact-checking can be done in multiple ways. For example, you can cross-reference different articles to make sure that all the information lines up. Or you can go to fact-checking websites like PoliticalFact or factcheck.org. According to an article called Political Polarization and Media by Pew Research Center, we can see that many on the left and right only go for sources that voice their opinion. Not only does this create an echo chamber, but also prevents discussion between political parties. In order to be a well-informed citizen, it's important to watch the news sources from many spots on the political spectrum. You must be careful of your political beliefs and not be influenced by media bias. We often go every day of our lives believing everything we see and not being wary. In order to keep a well-running democracy, citizens need to be well-informed, or else America will be so divided that more riots, more domestic attacks will impact your community. But hey, this video might be biased. It might be propaganda, but that's up to you to discern.